Blue Beetle is easily the best superhero movie that has come out in recent years.
The hell is Blue Beetle?
And no one knows about it. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Animated Theater. This is a YouTube channel where I review my favorite movies and TV shows, but also I make animations, hence the name. If you're like me and you love things like Star Trek and Doctor Who, then subscribe to the channel. Those are two shows I've been reviewing on this channel, but also they were big inspirations for my animations, so if you like those, you might also like my animations. Now, another thing I love, besides Star Trek and Doctor Who, is this movie, Blue Beetle. In fact, I would go as far as to say this is the best movie since Spider-Man, my boy Andrew Garfield is back. Oh yeah, and also Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland are in the movie too. In fact, I might even go as far as to say this movie is even better than Spider-Man Electro's there, even though it doesn't follow the rules that the movie lays out. Unless you're really into meme service, in which case you'll probably like Spider-Man better, which I won't judge you for. After all, I'm something of a memester myself. So this movie, I think, is very good, and it's sort of unfortunate it came out when it did, because I think if it came out in a time when people were more excited about superhero movies, this movie would have done very well, and possibly could be the first part of a wonderful Blue Beetle trilogy. So I'm a big fan of Blue Beetle, not just the movie, but also as a character. In fact, when I first started buying comics, it was in the Rebirth era, and some of the first comics that I bought were Blue Beetle. So needless to say, I was very happy when Blue Beetle was getting his own movie. I was even more happy when I watched it, and it was pretty good. And then I was sad realizing that this might be the last time I see Blue Beetle in a movie, because it just really came out in a bad time. It was in between versions of the DC cinematic universe, so I feel like no one really cared about anything that was coming out in DC at this point. Also, it came out around the same time Flash did, and yeah, the less said about that movie is probably better. But with that being said, if you don't like any other DC superhero movies, I think you'll like this one. This is honestly probably my favorite DC superhero movie. I really like the Dark Knight trilogy, but I wouldn't necessarily classify it in the genre of superhero movies. And even if I did, I think I like this movie a little bit better. This movie is just incredible. It's amazing. It's absolutely fantastic. And you know what? So was I. So I'm going to treat this review as if you haven't seen the movie. So those 5 people who have seen the movie that aren't me, bear with me while I try and convince everyone else to see this movie. This movie handles humor very well. It has a good balance of seriousness and humor, which makes the humor really hit. It's not like every other superhero movie where it's just humor with a storyline to tack all of the jokes together. I'm looking at you, Thor Ragnarok. Yuck. This movie also has great theming, dealing with things like struggling with money and finding your purpose. Now, me being someone in his early 20s, just now entering adult life, I relate to these themes very strongly, and it's great. Now, if you're someone that's kind of easily scared or doesn't handle violence well, this movie might not be the best for you. But if you like violence or a bit of sort of scariness in your movies, like I do, then this movie might be for you. Also, the sort of violence in this movie is violent enough to feel like the stakes are raised. It's graphic enough that you feel like maybe characters will actually get hurt, which is something that you don't see a lot in superhero stuff unless you're talking about, like, Invincible is another show that the violence is very violent and it feels like people will actually get hurt. The stakes are raised. I will say, if Invincible isn't your cup of tea because it's too graphic, too violent, too gruesome, this isn't in that same ballpark. This is much cleaner than the violence in Invincible, so don't worry if that's something that you're afraid of. Now, in my opinion, one of the greatest themes of the character of Spider-Man is him struggling financially, and it makes for some very interesting stories. And I don't feel like any of the Spider-Man movies have really tapped into that story, which is a very important part of the character, I feel. But this movie, Blue Beetle, does a very good job of telling those stories about struggling financially. This movie isn't over the top political, and then the parts of it that are more political, they are not political in a way that would prevent you from enjoying the movie. None of this movie, I feel like, is actively trying to insult or annoy people who disagree. I'm looking at you, Doctor Who.
Yes, we know.
We know everything. Thanks.
And you know nothing. It's a shame you're not a woman anymore. Because she'd have understood.
We've got all that power, but there is a way to get rid of it. Something a male-presenting Time Lord will never understand.
But at the end of the day, this is really a great movie for a great character that I hope will actually get the attention he deserves. Well, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching, and check out my other reviews, my other animations, and of course check out the Blue Beetle movie if you aren't one of the 5 people who have already seen it. And I will talk to you later. Don't forget to brush your teeth. Hygiene is an important thing. I got Blue Mountain Dew to drink because I'm talking about Blue Beetle.